Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Angler Grind podcast. I'm your host, Haley Demers, and you're on a journey with us today because this is our first virtual recording, and we're having Wi-Fi issues, so just bear with us in this. But today, I'm really, really excited to have a dear friend of mine on who is on a journey with me right now. But by the time this podcast comes out, I will have already had a baby and she'll be getting ready to have babies. She is a newly full-time entrepreneur as of this last May. I'm not going to tell any more of her story for you, but today I'm really excited to have the owner and founder of Maria Popp Photography, Miss Maria Popp.
Hi, Haley. Thank you for having me on. I'm very excited to get to chat with you today. So
I'm very thankful. It's been a long time coming. We've had a couple schedules where you were in this space or able to be in the space and I wasn't with all the craziness. So I just really appreciate that you're willing to give me your time today.
Just as long as we meet before we both give birth.
Yeah, for sure. Well, by the time this podcast comes out, I'll have had a baby, but to give a little perspective, I'm like a couple short weeks away. So, sending prayers to both you and myself. But how are things? You're out in Broken Bow?
This is where my husband is originally from. So we farm and ranch out here, mainly ranch. And today we're preconditioning calves. And so I can't quite help with that like I usually do. So I'm making some banana bread to take to the guys to help on that end. So, harvest is in full swing and we're just kind of getting ready for the change of season. So,
yeah, well, banana bread, it's sometimes about the little things in life. So they will be very appreciative of that during the hard days. But let's kind of dive into your journey. Maria, you're like a year younger than me, I think. So we're kind of at the same point in life. But talk a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur and maybe touch on Angler and how you found Angler a little bit as well, since you are also an alum.
Yeah. So I started in the Angler program at UNL when I was a freshman. I had two siblings that had gone through the program, so I was pretty familiar with it. So I was there in the beginning when it was Miller Hall, through the transition into the new space in the library. And so it was a really cool time to see like Miller Hall change into the new space and that come to fruition. I served a lot on the recruiting team. That was kind of a new concept that they were building. So I was really thankful to be a part of that. I got to work with Dave Lamb a lot in some classes to focus on my business. And so I didn't really land on photography itself until probably my senior year, I think, is when I started taking it a little bit more seriously. So how I got started was my sister is also a wedding photographer, an Angler alum, and she asked me to help her with one of her weddings. And I had never really touched a camera. And there's a thing with cameras, like you can, with the settings, you can put it on auto and the camera will do all the work for you. But she's like, we're not going to do that. We're going to baptize you by fire and we're going to have you learn manual. So you have to know and learn a lot of the settings of the camera and how to produce a really great image, really good light. I had no idea. I had no idea. None. What I was doing. But it was really good practice. And so she kept having me help her with wedding days. And eventually I learned a little bit more. And then I had the opportunity to take a class. It was called Storytelling in Agriculture. It was with Dr. Michael Forsberg and Mike Farrell. And so it was a very small class, very unique. They only took about like 8 students max a semester. And so they really focused on camera work, but also like, why are you telling a story? How do you tell a story? How do you do that? Like with your words, with your images. And so that was a really, really interesting class. And so I was able to take that for 2 semesters, and that really grew my love for taking photos and just enjoying it, not as a business side, but I loved taking photos with my camera, and I loved taking photos of people. I remember my professor said, it seems that people are really comfortable like with you taking their picture, and that's not something you can always teach. And so I really tried to think about that and kind of run with that. Okay, like how can I capitalize on like this intangible that I have? So I took that class, learned a lot from that, had continued to help my sister. I would take my camera everywhere. I'd take it to class, I'd take it to the ranch, and I'd just take photos of everything. And so when I got to my spring semester of senior year, I met with Dave for the semester. And I was like, man, I really think I want to like scale this as a business. I think I want to try and do that because I don't want to work for someone else for a long time. And he was like, I think you should do weddings. I think there's lots of opportunity. And I was like, I don't want to do that. Just because there's so many wedding photographers, it seems like it's very saturated. My sister did it. It's very stressful. Wedding photography is very, very stressful. You carry
Not for the faint of heart.
Yeah. You carry a lot of responsibility. And lots of things can go wrong. And so it seems very high risk. But I didn't want to do that. I just wasn't sure if that was for me. I really liked focusing on agriculture and ag families and really cool storylines there. And I kept trying to push that, but that's not quite as big of a market, or it's very specialized. Like I know a photographer from Missouri. She goes all over the US to these different like bigger operations, like seed stock operations. And she'll do lots of kind of like legacy film for them. But it just takes lots of connection and growth. And so I wasn't really at a point where I could scale that or like market that as a business. At least not as much as I wanted to. And so I started with a different name. It was called Golden Hills Photos and Marketing because I had some marketing experience. And so my first client after graduating, it was like a week after I graduated, I worked on a website for this one angler company, actually. So I took some photos, like branding photos for them. And then I also edited their website. And it was just kind of strenuous process. Like I didn't love the flow of it. I didn't really enjoy the process. Like, this might not be it. And at that point, I was still helping my sister a lot. And an opportunity came up to be a lead photographer or like an associate for the day. So I was a contracted photographer for this wedding day. And so I walked in and I thought I was going to be so nervous. Like I had no idea what I'm doing. And I just like went into the zone because I'd helped my sister so many times and I'd watched her and I'd seen so many other photographers. And I'm like, I just know what to do because I witnessed like so many and just being an assistant photographer. And I was like, oh man, I think this could work. And at that point, yeah, I was already graduated. I was working full time at a bank in town. Me and my husband got married right after college. And so we were at the ranch. I was working in town and then just doing this on the weekends. And I wasn't really fulfilled by my job. And I knew wherever I went, like I wanted to ultimately work for myself. It's just kind of in my family, both my parents are entrepreneurs. My whole family's been entrepreneurs and in production ag. And so I'd never really seen the grind of like 8 to 5 labor and what they talked about in Angler, like until I experienced it myself for like, man, I don't think this is it. Like, I think I want to do something else. And I think like I'm willing to work as much as it takes if I can be my own boss. And so feeling that unfulfillment in my job really made me push to improve a lot in photography. So I was working any wedding I could, taking any job that I could, family photos, corporate stuff, anything. And I didn't charge that much in the beginning, just getting started. A lot of friends and neighbors helped me. And eventually, through time and patience, it grew. I got better. Word of mouth marketing is great. Really improved my client experience, my editing, my camera knowledge, everything. It just takes time. And got to the point where you can always get a full-time job later, but might as well take a chance. So, and that was this May. So we've been doing this for just a few months. So it's been going great so far. So yeah, I started Maria Popp Photography, and I'm a Nebraska wedding and engagement photographer now. So
wow. Since I know a little bit about photography, I cannot imagine being with your sister who is experienced in photography, and she says, "Here is a camera. Birth by fire. You're going to go into manual mode today." I would have been a little freaked out, but how did those photos turn out for you? Was that a good experience overall? That first one?
She was very gracious with me. I'm pretty sure I only had a handful of photos that she could actually salvage. When I had like downtime and I could really just look at like this floral arrangement after like 5 minutes, like, I got it. Look, Haley, does this look good? But yeah, that's a big misconception. Like people think you just point the camera and click, but there's so much to it. There's so much to it, and especially outdoor natural light photography. So yeah, the beginning, I was more of an assistant instead of a photographer, probably.
Yeah.
So I would just help her with other things. But eventually, as time gone on, the photos got better. So
That's awesome. You talked about telling a story with your photos. Talk a little bit about that. Like, what kind of draws you to the storytelling, and how do you tell a story through photography?
yeah, it's a really cool creative outlet. I feel like there's lots of things in my mind like I want to bring words to, but I can't. Like, I'm not a writer. But I can like see things and know that I want to take that photo. And so it's just a really easy way to express myself. I remember I have these 2 photos of my paternal grandparents. And one is my grandma. I think it was like 1952. She was standing in front of, I think it was a new car that they bought. And one was my grandpa. And I just thought, I'm like, these photos are so important. Like, I'm so glad that we have these. Like, if you don't capture them, like, what do you have like to remember? And all these like little moments, like maybe not like big things or big events that are happening, but like you want to remember the little stuff. And the specific like quirks about people or like someone's favorite spot. So yeah, I had those photos in a little like shoebox in college, and I just would look at them all the time. And so I thought, like, how can I recreate that today? Like, how can I make sure my grandkids, great grandkids, like have those memories of me and like my husband or my family, like when we're younger, when all these things are happening. So that was a big reason for it. And I don't know, you just like, you get a feeling when you see like a landscape or a moment and you want to capture it. I can't explain it, but yeah, that's kind of my best way I could describe that.
Yeah, no, that's really special. and I mentioned before, being a wedding photographer is not for the faint of heart. Like, it is truly one of the hardest things to capture. And so one, kudos to you for stepping into that market, because it can be very overwhelming. Um, and it is a little bit of a saturated market. There's a lot of photographers out there. What is the difference between Maria Popp Photography and other photographers in Nebraska who are kind of in that market with you? And I guess, yeah, do you ever see yourself going outside of wedding photography either?
Oh man. I'll start with the easier part to answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So wedding photography just seemed really saturated, because like with young people in Instagram, that's kind of where a lot of the market is to probably find maybe a photographer that you like. And that's the mode of marketing that I use. Excuse me. And I felt like I just saw stuff everywhere. Like, everyone's a photographer. Anyone can be a photographer. And that's a great thing, that there's no barrier to entry, But that was one of the main reasons. I was like, no, like, there's already plenty out there. But one thing that I really tell my clients, or like when I talk to people who will inquire with me, is there's two sides to like wedding photography specifically I talk about. One is the like final product, the photos, the images, editing style, like moments that you capture, everything, like your actual product. But the other side that a lot of people don't talk about is the experience. You want a photographer who you trust and who you feel comfortable with, who is organized, who can yell at your family members to like move or leave or get in the photo, because you don't want to worry about that on your wedding day. You want to be present on your wedding day. You want to be relaxed. You don't want to be rushed. There's just so many things that you can bring wedding photography to serve your clients that I felt like a lot of people were maybe missing the mark on. Or I just saw brides who were so stressed out all day, or were trying to set up final like decorations. I'm like, you shouldn't be worried about that. Like, you should be just worried about getting married and be excited about that. And so that's where I really thought, okay, I think I can make a difference in this industry with my experience and how I serve these people. Like, I really, really, really love to serve them beyond like just taking the photo, like all the prep beforehand. So we're all planned out like months beforehand. So we're not making decisions like a week before the wedding, 2 weeks when you're really stressed. So that's what I really try to like hone in on and focus on and improve like every wedding that I go to in year over year. How can I improve my client experience while also growing like my photography skills, everything, and if I'll ever go beyond wedding photography, I have no idea. It'll change a lot when we have our twins, because wedding days can be hard, they're long. Sometimes you have to stay overnight, do a lot of driving. So it would be nice if I could do more short sessions closer to me, but there's only so much you can do in rural Nebraska. You're a little limited there, but right now I really love it. I love being there just to witness it's in a really intimate way, like up close. So I love wedding photography. I don't plan on changing anytime soon. So,
well, that's really special. I can't imagine my first camera experience being at a wedding. So that still takes me back a little bit. And that's just wild. You mentioned that you went full-time with your business in May. And you, what our listeners maybe don't know, I have twins on the way. Um, well, you shared the story of how you found out you were having twins and what it was like quitting your job and in that experience.
Yeah, so I really believe God's timing is perfect, and we can't understand it, but he just knows what we need, and his timing is perfect. So I had been wanting to quit my job for quite a while, and the timing just never seemed right. I feel like it never worked for like for me, like I didn't have like a great plan of, or maybe like it would affect, or like how would this affect my husband? How would this affect the ranch? Like, and I feel like I didn't have the go ahead from God to be like, okay, like it's okay, like you can quit now, like let's do something else. But I feel like I finally got that this spring, and I felt like I had done a good job at my role that I was in and built really good relationships. We're just going to bite the bullet. We're going to do it. And I turned in my 2-week notice, and then had my last day of work 2 weeks later. And then, so that was a Friday. And the following Monday morning, like first day, like, oh, I'm a full-time photographer. I can't wait to focus on my business and grow that this year. Session that night in Omaha, I was really excited for. And that Monday morning, I woke up and then I found out I was pregnant.
That's so fun.
And so I had no idea. Like there was no crossover between like working at the bank and that. And I was like, oh man, now everyone's gonna think I quit because I'm pregnant. Which was untrue. But God's timing was perfect because I really wanted to be in a different season, like when I was preparing, like, to have kids and kind of focus on building my business beforehand, before they came. So I didn't have to grind so much when they were here. And so he just answered that prayer. He really did, in a crazy way. So yes, from day one of being a full-time entrepreneur, I've also been pregnant. And then we found out a few weeks later that I was pregnant with twins. So we're going to have our hands full. I feel even more blessed now that I get to work for myself and create my own schedule. And I get to be there more for my kids, for my husband, for the ranch, and just be present here and business. So yes, timing is crazy.
Timing is wild. What is keeping you grounded as an entrepreneur right now? And so like you're pregnant with twins and you're taking photos of all these weddings. What's keeping you grounded right now?
Oh, man. Maybe this isn't the right way to say it, but it's just what I think of. Everything feels very clear. I feel like I have a very clear vision of what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. I just feel that all of our work, whatever we're doing, whether it's me doing weddings, some family photos, Jordan, my husband, like working on the ranch, everything we're doing is very purposeful work. It's not mundane. It's not for someone else. It's all about building and providing for our family, and having kids on the way really makes that. It just clears it up. So we really want to provide for our kids, and it's just amazing when you can do work that you're passionate about and that you care about, and that you really, really aren't scared of working hard for, because you have a really good vision, of providing for those little babies. So it just makes everything very clear and very purposeful. So that's really reassuring, like day in, day out. Like, I know why we're doing this. And we're going to work really hard to like keep working towards our goals.
Yeah. How has the transition for you been, going from working full time to now doing your business full time?
Yeah, that was a big one. Still is a big one. I feel like I struggled in the beginning because if I wasn't pregnant, I probably would have gotten a part-time job because I was at the point where I'm like, okay, maybe I won't match my salary right away, but I know I just need to push for this and keep working. And if we take a little cut in income, like that's okay. And I was going to try and supplement it with some part-time work. But when I found out I was pregnant, I was like, all I can handle. And I was pretty sick. And you need time to prepare. And I was really glad that God gave me that. Because it was a lot too to transition to being like at the ranch. It's like, okay, so like how do I fit in here? Is this different now? Like you see your husband more, like you're closer to the work that's happening here. And just like learning that like it's okay if you don't make as much money as you did in your full-time job for a while. That's okay. And I'm really thankful for my husband, like providing in like other ways. Like I felt like I was providing, like, for the insurance and all of like those benefits. But when those went away, like it's okay to really focus on the partner pillar. Like we are partners, and I didn't have to feel like I had to make like all of our disposable income. And still learning a lot about finances, like ranch and my business, that changed a lot. And so he's just worked really hard so that I didn't have to do another job if I didn't want to. And so I'm really, really thankful for that. And so, yeah, partner pillar is huge. But yeah, especially like in the beginning, I was pretty sick. And so I was really thankful to maybe not be like maxed out, wedding every weekend. So it's been a good, like slower progression. And just again, perfect with God's timing for like that I wasn't like sick every weekend and just wearing my body out. So I feel like my pregnancy has also gone a lot better, and I feel a lot better because of that too. So yeah, it's not always the grind, work, because I didn't have maybe as much work or weddings booked as other people did, but I was just ready to focus on that. So
yeah. What a transition, man. In May, and then prime wedding season is really like June, July, August, like that's crazy. And so like that's really difficult. Wow. What I love how you shared how you and Jordan, you were kind of going through this transition, but you were also like, what do we need for finances? What do we need to build a family? And talking about disposable income and insurance and things like that, it can be really hard to talk about sometimes. But when you really think about like, what do we need to live in life? I think sometimes entrepreneurs make their decision based off money. And it's because they want to make a lot of money, or maybe they won't make a lot of money out of the gate, but realizing what you needed in your family to be successful and knowing that this is what we need to get by right now. It won't be like this forever is really interesting.
Yeah, I feel like that's a thing that a lot of younger people my age are scared of. Like they're scared of leaving the workforce because they won't have the insurance. They won't have as much money. And it's almost like fear mongering. I feel like sometimes people do, or like just the lack of security. And it's really, there's just so many options out there. And you really have to prioritize, okay, what do we need? What can we live without? Like, what are just wants? Like, how do we want to spend or invest our money? And there's just so many things that you don't need when you really value being your own boss, you're like, man, I would trade so much material things if I could do this. And so we don't feel like we've been in a scarcity. We feel so blessed because of what we're able to do daily. Like, you can't trade that for money. Like, yeah, we make money. Maybe not as much if we both worked full-time jobs, but we love what we do. And there are other options for insurance. Like, you just, and you don't need a lot of stuff. And it sets your priorities straight with money and how you want to live too.
And we'll love that. Love that. Well, we have exhausted our time for this week's episode. I knew it was going to go fast. It always does. I am really excited to dive into next week's episode just to talk a little bit more about, like, you are a very young entrepreneur, what, 25? Am I right? 25 years old, quitting your job, finding out you're pregnant with twins is just, I have the goosebumps right now because that's just really, really special. And what a cool story that you're going to be able to share with those kiddos someday. And quitting your job is so difficult to come to. So I want to dive more into that at next week's episode. So thank you so much for joining me, friend. It's been so wonderful to see your face, and I'm excited to chat more.
Yeah, we'll talk soon. I'm ready.
Thanks, Maria.
Thank you. Thank you.